Hi everyone, in this video we're going to be discussing a case of police brutality. So we have a situation where a police officer by the name of Eric Huxley and his fellow officers were in the process of arresting a guy by the name of Jermaine Vaughn. And in that process, Mr. Huxley decided to stomp on Mr. Vaughn's head with his boot. And this is a classic case of police brutality. So the video, I checked out the video and it was pretty disturbing to me. So let's check it out right now and we'll discuss everything after.
IMPD sergeant has been indicted by a federal grand jury for violating a man's civil rights by using excessive force while arresting him.
You might remember when this went down. It was last September. 44-year-old Sergeant Eric Huxley was assisting another officer who was making an arrest downtown Indianapolis on Monument Circle when the incident happened.
Karen Campbell is here to break down how this will play out. Karen.
Yeah, I spoke with an IU professor. She's a criminal justice professor who said she was surprised that this case went to a federal grand jury and that they chose to indict Sergeant Eric Huxley. She said this signals a big change in the criminal justice system. It's a case that's garnered national attention. IMPD Sergeant Eric Huxley, a 15-year veteran with the department, seen on police body camera video kicking a man handcuffed on the ground in the face. The incident happened last September when officers were called to apprehend Jermaine Vaughn, who was homeless on Monument Circle. Late Tuesday night, a federal grand jury indicted Huxley with one count of deprivation of rights under color of law.
In this case, there was video cameras, there were witnesses' accounts. There was, showing this real thing that happened.
IU criminal justice professor Stephanie Whitehead says it's rare for a grand jury to move forward with charges.
I didn't foresee it.
Okay.
I didn't even foresee state charges, to be honest. Because in so many cases, they don't move forward. A police chief will usually hide behind kind of qualified immunity that they're in the right in these situations because they feel like there's a threat to their lives.
Whitehead says we're starting to see a culture shift with police chiefs taking these kinds of incidents seriously. In a statement, IMPD Chief Randall Taylor called the incident unnecessary and that it should never have occurred. He went on to say, quote, "As law enforcement officials, we must understand that this behavior violates the community's trust. We have confidence the judicial system will bring justice to Mr. Vaughn and his family." And Huxley is suspended without pay pending a recommendation of termination to the IMPD Civilian Police Merit Board. Now, the board only reviews an officer's status once the criminal process is completed.
So as you see from that video, it was pretty brutal. And a couple of years ago, I was driving around and with my wife in the car, and she was chastising me because every time I would see police ahead, I would turn off. I would find a different route. And I told her, you don't understand. I'm a black man. She's a black woman, but she don't really get it. She didn't get it at that time. I was trying to tell her, listen, I try to avoid the cops as much as I can. Now, I'm a law-abiding citizen. I don't smoke. I only drink casually. I never drink to get drunk. I don't do anything wrong. I haven't committed any crimes. I'm a law-abiding citizen. But after seeing so many cases where black men were killed or brutalized, beat up or whatever, in cases this guy got stomped in the face, this guy could have been killed. Somebody taking their foot and using their force and kicking you in the face, basically, he could have gotten brain damage. He could have gotten his teeth knocked out, could have died. Police brutality is rooted in racism because these situations really don't happen to white people. They never have to worry about getting pulled over and their possibly their life being ended or getting beat up. So Mr. Huxley is a 15-year veteran in the police force, and he definitely should know better. Even if he was there for a week, everyone knows that this is just excessive force. So what did Mr. Jermaine Vaughn do to elicit such force and violence from this officer. Jermaine Vaughn didn't really do anything wrong. He was just responding. The officer said something to him, and he was just repeating the same thing the officer said back to him. So it wasn't anything to beat up this guy about. But police officers have too much power. That's a fact. And, in the video you hear they say that the lady said she was surprised that this officer was indicted. And yeah, it was very surprising because police basically get away with murder. And they have gotten away with murder many times. They've killed people and all that. And this officer is so brazen. It's obviously he's done this before. He's so brazen. He's wearing a body camera. The police officer are wearing body cameras. There are witnesses standing around. The guy is not resisting arrest. He's handcuffed, actually. And yet, still, the officer decides this guy is not worth anything. He looks at him as obviously like he's not even human. You wouldn't even treat your dog like that, right? So he decides to stomp the guy in his face because the guy was talking back to the officer, but the guy wasn't cursing. He wasn't doing anything like that. I thought it was a pretty standard stuff. But in my experience, I will not talk back to an officer. I would ask a question, but let me tell you a situation that happened to me. So one time I'll tell you two situations. I was driving in Brooklyn, and I was driving down a street, and I saw cops. They were on the sidewalk, actually. I guess they were responding to whatever is happening there. So I drove by, and I stopped by a friend's house a couple blocks away. And I don't know, about a half hour later, cop pulled up next to my car and he said, were you driving down this street? I'm like, and about a half hour ago, I'm like, yeah. So he starts getting agitated and upset. And he was like, you were speeding down the street and you almost hit an officer. And I'm like, I didn't almost hit anybody. There was nobody in the street. The officers were on the sidewalk. So, I'm very respectful. I'm never, but this officer, he looks like he have roid rage, and, he looks like he wants to beat me up. He's speaking to me in an angry way and very aggressive. But luckily for me, the officer that was with him seems to be his superior. And that officer was kind of calming the situation down. I wasn't, I was just speaking normally and just trying to, trying to get out of the situation as best I could. And so I did get out of the situation because the other officer was calm and that was that. But, it could have easily gone south. If that officer wasn't there with him, the superior officer, that guy, I know he would have want to pull me out and beat me up and arrest me and all kind of stuff. So that was one situation that I went through. And I've had many situations with cops because, I drive a lot. So I get pulled over. And most of the time, the officers are actually nice. I haven't had much situations where, it was bad. So I've had good situations with officers, but I read the news a lot, and I've seen many, many cases where police officers overstep their grounds and kill someone or beat them up and all. So I'm totally aware that there are racist officers out there who will take the opportunity and abuse their badge and brutalize black men. So let me tell you another case. I was driving upstate. I was doing a job for the Akwesasne Mohawk Casino. And that casino is close to Canada. It's in the U.S., but on the border, right? So I went up there and I was driving to my hotel. While I was driving to my hotel, I realized the cops were following me. But I wasn't speeding. I wasn't doing anything wrong. And the cops were following me. I just made sure and triple check, make sure I'm driving at the speed limit. So the cops pulled me over. So there's no reason to pull me over. I'm not doing anything wrong. So the cop pulled me over and he's like, so I'm just shocked he's pulling me over. So I asked the officer, I'm like, so why am I being pulled over? The guy said, he is going to do the talking, so I'm lesser than him. I can't even ask a question. So from that, I decided, let me don't say anything because I don't want to get arrested. I don't want to get beat up, and I don't want to get killed. So the officer said, can we search your vehicle? Now, I could have refused searching of my vehicle, but I'm thinking, if I refuse, maybe he's going to find a reason to lock me up anyway. He's going to say, and then I'm thinking, if I allow him to search my vehicle, how do I know he's not going to plant something in the vehicle and said that it was mine and then arrest me anyway? So it was a tough situation, but I decided, I don't have anything to hide. And, as I said, I don't have weed. I don't have guns. I don't have nothing. I don't do anything wrong. So I decided to let him search my vehicle. So he told me get out the car. No, it was pretty cold. Okay. I'm going to tell you it was cold. It was freezing outside. It was wintertime. So I got out the car, I had on my jacket and everything like that. And I put my hand in my pocket, in my jacket pocket, because obviously it's freezing. And the officer, he and his fellow officer, they had guns and all of that, and a dog. So they brought the dog to search the vehicle. So they brought the dog out. So while I'm standing on the side of the road, my hands in my pocket, the officer says to me, take your hands out your pocket. I'm like, but it's cold. So he was like, take your hands out. So I took my hands out of my pocket. And, this is how I'm being treated, right? I'm a citizen of the United States. I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm getting pulled over for no reason at all. The only thing I could surmise is because of the color of my skin, because I wasn't doing anything wrong. And now I have to take my hands out of my pocket and have it freeze while they searching my vehicle for no reason at all. So this is how black people are treated in America. And obviously the dog didn't find anything because there's nothing there. And then they let me go. But this kind of situation could have escalated easily. And, just driving while black, it's just a tough thing. Just walking or being around. Now this guy, Mr. Jermaine Vaughn, was homeless. And I guess he was in a place that he shouldn't be. Someone called the cops and they decided to arrest him. And the situation got out of control very easily because this officer think that he's a superior being than Mr. Vaughn. But if people will just treat each other with respect, life will be so much easier. So this officer was indicted, and it was a total shock. And hopefully he loses his job, and hopefully Mr. Vaughn sues him. But, when a victim sues an officer, the taxpayers are the ones who's paying. The officer is not paying nothing. The officer might lose his job, but a lot of times they just go to a different state and get another police job. It has happened many times. Get another job as a police officer in another state. So, as I said, this guy he's a racist. And he's just abusing his badge. And a lot of times, when you go to court, people assume that police officers, they have a higher standard or they have better morals. Or police officers are just like anybody else. They lie, they steal, they do everything. They cheat on their wives, and they're no different from any other human. Just because someone took an oath to be an upstanding citizen, that doesn't mean that they're going to do it. A lot of times just trying to get a job. And, it's a tough thing because they should be held at a higher standard. And a lot of times they're not. They just abuse their power. Now, I'm not saying all police officers, okay? I'm just saying the bad ones, the ones that's racist. And I think most police officers are good people and trying to do their job and trying to get home to their family. But there's a good percentage of them. If I had to estimate, I don't know, like a quarter of them are just criminals. They're criminals, they're racist, but you can't be a racist and be a cop because you're dealing with black people, you're dealing with minorities, and it just doesn't blend. So you're gonna be in contact with minorities, and you got to treat them with respect. But a lot of times it doesn't happen. So luckily, body camera footage has been a lifesaver, literally, for many people. Because before body camera was in place, just imagine what cops were doing. Because now we have the body camera and they're still doing it. So I'm just hoping that, the police departments around the country kind of weed out these bad cops. And as you saw from the video, they said the head of the police, they always have many excuses of why police are using excessive force. So, and I know there are times, if officer is trying to arrest someone and that person is fighting the officer or whatever, then the officer has to, use more force to restrain the person. Yes, there are situations like that. But this guy definitely wasn't fighting back, wasn't doing anything. In fact, in one segment of that video, the officer had Mr. Jermaine on his back on the ground, and one of the officers had a knee on his chest. And then the other officer told him to turn to his stomach. So Jermaine said, I can't turn because the guy has his knee on my chest. So it's just unbelievable. They're just looking for a reason to beat this guy up and possibly kill him over just a simple arrest. Well, let me tell you something, okay? Police officers are not judge, jury, and executioner. That's not their job. Police officers are there to arrest people when it's necessary, okay? And once they arrest them, then the victim or the perpetrator, whoever they're arresting, have due process to go to court and have a lawyer, and the courts will decide if this person was guilty, and then a jury will decide if this person is going to go to jail for how long. That's the process. If you have one person deciding everything and that person is biased, then we're in trouble, okay? We're in major trouble. So police officers have way too much power. It seems like they need a supervisor with them or internal affairs to go out with them on every time they leave the station, because you just can't trust them. You cannot trust them. Now, this guy, he was talking back to the police officers. He wasn't cursing. I didn't see anything wrong with what he was saying, okay? But personally, I wouldn't say anything to the police officers. I would possibly ask a question, respectfully, and hopefully I get the same in return. If not, I just stay quiet, and if I'm getting arrested, I'll just get arrested, and then I'll get a lawyer and try to get out of it, and that's it. So that's it for this video. I would see y'all in the next one.